This year's G7 is in Japan. Plenty to discuss, right? Bank defaults, bank crashes, currency volatility, recession, stalking the lands of the G7 economies. Even uprisings on the streets of one of their capitals, Paris, France, have all been reduced to of secondary importance. Instead of discussing their ailing economies, the G7 has been turned into an anti-China jamboree. The United States dropped not one, but 2 nuclear bombs on hundreds of thousands of Japanese civilians in the lifetime of some of you watching this video. But as Bob Dylan said, things have changed. Behind the screen of the G7 show, the Americans are working hard to draft Japan into what would almost certainly be another nuclear confrontation, but this time with 2 sides. NATO has even opened an office in Japan, as far away from the North Atlantic as it's almost possible to go. Japanese imperialism slaughtered up to 35 million Chinese people between 1931 and 1945, and now they're being drafted as an anti-China shock troop. Japan has history all across Asia and during that same period, from the Philippines to Korea, from Indonesia to Myanmar. The recruitment, or is it the press ganging of Japan as the American spearhead, is the unkindest cut of all, even for America's best friends, like South Korea. So impressed was Joe Biden by the South Korean president's karaoke act in the White House, he's determined to bake the Koreans into an American pie. But nobody in Korea, North or South, has forgotten what Japanese imperialism meant for them in the past. But there's humiliation involved for the people of Japan too. For decades, the Americans have lorded it over Japan, not allowing them even to have an actual military. And the country remains, in part, under American occupation, extremely controversially. Yankees lording it in Okinawa and in other Japanese cities. Murder, rape, theft and corruption and vice of all kinds leaves a bitter taste, the taste of ash in the mouths of dignified people in Japan. But the Americans need Japan against China because their once hoped-for quad of nations has become a very rickety, 3-legged stool. Australia is a weak, if soon-to-be nuclear-fueled vessel. The high hopes that India could be included in the American alliance have faded as India throws itself more and more enthusiastically into the Eurasian future. What if old enmities between India and China were tossed onto the funeral pyre and the world's 2 most populous countries began walking step by step? Quad is not waving, but drowning in a sea of change. This parade of fear and loathing of China was the very opposite of a victory parade. The G7 has been overtaken by the BRICS, now so large it's stretching the alphabet. For decades after the Second World War, old men in military garb would emerge from foxholes blinking, unable to accept that the war was over, that Japan had lost and was now a plaything of American empire. There was more than a whiff of that in Hiroshima, amidst the toxic fumes of anti-China rhetoric. Chihuahuas dancing for the edification of the emperor, except this American emperor has no clothes. Less Kurosawa's 7 Samurai, more Walt Disney's 7 Dwarfs, led by Snow White Joe Biden.